Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session of the Dev Days of Summer 2024 edition. Today we will speak about logs from an intermediate to an advanced level. We will check uh, some of the nice features of the jachLog library. My name is Juan Castillo. I am a developer, consultant, and Embarcadero MVP. I am based in Guatemala, but today I am speaking from San Jose, Costa Rica. So, pura vida. This is today's agenda. We will check what is a log file, the platforms that the library supports. We learn how to log stack traces in case of errors. We will speak also about some of the architecture of the library, uh, covering topics like log writers and log destinations, the topics of the log, the filtering of the logs, and finally we will speak about performance. So let's start talking about what is a log file. I want to start saying that historically a log file is an official record of events during the voyage of a ship or an aircraft. In computing, log files are historical records of everything and anything that happens within a system, including events such as transactions, errors, and instructions. That data can be stored and transmitted in different ways. A log record is the information related to an event that took place in a certain time and might have metadata that contextualizes it. jachLog is a library that allows you to add text logging capabilities to your application in minutes. I also want to say that logs are an industry standard and there are a great ecosystem around them, and that gives you a lot of tooling to process and extract a lot of valuable information from them, not just the very detailed trail of what happened during runtime, but logs are the foundation of the observability and monitoring of many applications, both client but especially server side. So, what is supported by the library? Uh, I want to say that jachLog is a lightweight yet powerful library that allows you to write text logs from any Delphi application from desktop, where it supports VCL and FMX applications, and console and all kind of server applications. Writing logs is also possible from a dynamic link library. Speaking about operating systems, being a pure Pascal library, all what Delphi supports is it's supported by the library. Currently, it means Windows, Linux, Mac OS, and Android. And in the future, if the product supports more operating systems, uh, I, I, the library will also support it. So let's check the first topic of the day, and that is how you uh, record the stack trace in case of errors. And one of the nice things that you may want to keep logged in case of any error is not just when and the error happened, but you need also to know where it arises in your code along with some additional info. In my experience, this is one of the most powerful tools a developer can have to catch errors that are difficult to reproduce. Sometimes it only happens during runtime in production or in a customer computer or device. So to achieve that, the first thing you need is to get the exception object to carry information on what was the state of the stack, the call stack, I mean, when the error occurred. Then you need to translate this information to the actual names of the entries in that stack. Currently, the library supports using the JCL debug unit for that. This unit is part of the Jedi library, which is also open source. And to allow this to get logged, let's go to the IDE. And like the jachLog library, the first thing that you need to do is to install that library in your IDE. We will also use the Get package manager to do that. So I will search for the library directly with its name, and I will just install it. While this installs, the next step is to include the debug library info in your exe application, so the library gets the capability to translate the stack into the Pascal name of the entries. To do that, you need access to the debug information on runtime. So usually you have this at hand on the debug version of your compilations. But if you want to have it in the release, you can also add that information. This makes your exe grow a bit or a significant amount, but this gives you the traceability inside your exe to know where the errors are arising. And the next step is to define a symbol that makes the library to do that process. So let's wait this to get installed. And if you haven't seen my previous presentation on this same developer days, uh, please visit that because I will use the same applications that I added the log in the first session to continue uh, using them in this presentation. Okay, everything is ready. So we have to start the ID. So I will reopen the CRM demo. Okay, so now I will go to project options. So I will define a new symbol. It has to be named as exception stack trace. I will save, and I will just hit run to see what happens in the log. So if you remember from our first session, I will just uh, manually raising an exception when we change to the marketing page of the page control, the main page control. So I will go there just to make the exception happen, and I will, in the meantime, I will open the log file for this application. So we are looking at the log in real time. I will go to a page. The log reflects the change. And now I will visit the marketing page. The error message appears, and the error gets logged. But if you notice, there is a change in the log file, and if we take a look at the what was written to the log, we have the error severity. This is the message that we uh, writing to the log that we write when calling the log method. This is the class of the exception, this here. This is the message of the exception, and there is the different thing that we are doing now. So here we have the stack trace, and this stack trace reveals where in the code the error happened. The error happened in the in this line of the system sysutils.pass unit. But we can also see from what other points this. Sorry, I we have also the function or method name that was executing at that time. In this case, it was inside system sysutils string to integer function, and this was invoked from the same function, and this was invoked from the uh, tab sheet do show, and we can look here where the execution was uh, going. I mean the complete uh, function and method call. Uh, so we can reconstruct the execution path that led us to this error. And as I said previously, you can have this in a release uh, application, also not just in a debug application. So to have it in release, you have to include the debug information. I mean the debug symbols along the exe, and that's everything. So now let's speak a little bit about the architecture of the library. Uh, the library, I mean the logging object is inside. We have different abstractions. One abstraction is the main log engine. This is the object that we instantiate in our code, and the object that exposes the method that we call to write entries to the log. And this engine just receives the logs, but the actual writing of the records to the different destinations are done in different objects. And these objects are created and registered at runtime. And the library out of the box supports writing to disk, I mean a plain text file, to syslog, being the syslog remote or local, to a database, for example. We can also write the log output to the user interface, as we shown in my previous presentation. And there are more destinations available, and I will be adding more and more as the library grows. The features of this approach is, of course, that if you are not interested in writing log to a specific destination, let's say a remote syslog server or to a database or to disk, for example, you simply don't create the an instance of that class of writer, or if you already have one instance created, you just unregister and destroy the writer from the engine, and doing so, the engine will be not wasting any time uh, processing entries to a destination that is not part of the actual writing of the messages. This is important because, of course, processing the messages and the actual writing of the messages to different destinations takes time and has costs involved in time of processing and memory use and other resources. So if you are not going to write to some destination, you just don't instantiate that writer. The other nice part is that for the already created writers for different destinations, you can activate or inactivate the writers depending on your runtime conditions. So you can stop writing to an already created destination. That's a nice thing. On the other hand, you can also write your own writer classes to reach a particular destination if that's not supported out of the box by the library. So you can write to new destinations or write to existing destinations, but on a non-standard or ad hoc way. A typical case for this is to write logs to a database because you might have a particular table design for to store this log, or you might be working with different database vendors. So it's up to you to write the final class. You have a class you can inherit from to just write the specialized part to consume your model. And I am planning to add to the library classes to write to some popular databases in a standardized format like SQL Server, MySQL, Oracle. But uh, the dependencies here tend to be complex. So I am planning to support FireDAC out of the box because this is the standard library to connect to databases, but there are lots and lots of other libraries. So you can use anyone, any library that you want. So what you do is to create different topics. A topic is an integer number, in fact, a byte uh, type of number that is the index of the topic you want to mark your entry with. And you can create topics like database or transaction or network or security or whatever it's proper for your application. So this will allow you to rapidly identify the subsystem, for example, that originates a record when inspecting the log, but this will also allow you to manage different filtering levels for different topics. So you might be tracking a particular failure or behavior in a particular subsystem, and you can, for example, allow debug records on that particular topic, but on other topics, you maintain the filter to higher severity levels, or you can even turn off the output of the log for the topics that you are not interested in a particular moment. As I said before, the topic it's a byte-sized integer that is the index of the topic. So you can have up to 256 topics, which up to now it allowed a lot of room for very complex applications. If you need more topics, write a feature request on the GitHub page, and let's take a look on what is your use case and how can uh, we support more topics. So now I will get back to Delphi, and I will add some topics. To do that, I will create a new unit just to have these declarations isolated from other code and accessible on all the application. So let's call this unit the constant unit. Okay, here we go. And I will create three constants to identify the index of the topics. I will prefix this as log t, the log topic, and I will create one for database, which will be number one. Other one for userland. I mean, this will record what happens on the user interface. And the last one will be, for example, a networking topic that, of course, this application doesn't need, but it's just to let you see what, what can you do. So now I will change the calls to the logging methods to add the topic. So all the methods support the topic as the first parameter, and you can configure the library if you want that your team always include a topic. So the methods that doesn't require a topic doesn't appear in the code. So let's include the new unit in the uses clause, the constants unit, and get back to the place where the first call is, and I will add the topic index to the call. And everything that happens at this level, I will classify it as userland. So let's copy the topic and we will just visit all the calls and add the topic as the first parameter to the method call. Now I will visit the data model as we added a log record for when the lead changes the status, which is also a user action on this application. So I will also classify this call as a userland record. But for example, just to make the example clear, I will add the unit So it recognizes the constants for the topics. And now I will add a event handler on this table, which is the table that holds the lead records on the database. And I will add a handle, for example, for the on error event, which is here. And if something goes wrong while writing to the database, I will just keep the that information on the log. Oh, I think the LSP server is not working. I'm sorry, my memory is just not good enough. I will compile to check if I have errors. I don't. So I will add this record here. And of course I will include the exception object. So everything that this object carries, I mean the messages and the class and the stack trace, get recorded on the log. So it compiles. But I will not only do that, but I will go, for example, on the main form to do some configuration of the logging object. This is not the place that I recommend to do this, of course, but I will doing it here to keep this presentation and this demo sim very simple. So I will go to the form create method. I mean the handler for this event, and let's add before the message or the record that goes to the log. I will. Oh, the LSP server is really not working. Give me a second, and I will restart the server. Something went wrong. I don't know what happened, but this restart the server. So we get the code inside working again. Okay, here we go. I will first put this property to true, so the topic name gets recorded to the log, and I will assign the names for the topics that I will be using. You have to do this once at the first opportunity in your log object, so everything gets written correctly to the record, even the earlier messages. I will have no time here, but something that I want to mention is that you can, of course, get rid of the jachLog auto unit, uh, and write you the code. You can use the unit as a template, for example, but you can write the code that creates the writers and configure do the proper configuration for your particular needs. This includes the for example, if you are supporting the disk log, you might change the folder where the log gets written, for example, or you can do a lot of customization there. So let's run this, and I will show you the log, and you can see how now the records on the log includes the name of the topic that that record belongs to. So you can rapidly identify uh, the subsystems or whatever that it means to your application that is producing this particular uh, record to the log. Okay, so now uh, we will discuss the filtering capabilities of the library, uh, kind of advanced filtering capabilities, and the filtering is done in 2 dimensions uh, that are applied all the time to this engine or the engine are applying. The first dimension is the severity, and give me a second. I mean the severity level. We will visit the page again for that explains the severity levels. But as I am saying, the severity level uh, go from the less severe level, that is the bug, to the most severe level, that is emergency. And when you are filtering records on this dimension, what you establish is what we call the log level. So if you start filtering, for example, on a particular level, what gets written to the log is every message that has that level or one of the higher levels of severity. And on the other hand, uh, all the records that have a less severe level, those records are ignored and never written to the log destination. So I will visit again this is the page for the library in GitHub, which actually hosts the code. This is the README of the library, and we will go to the wiki that holds the documentation for this library. I try to keep this documentation up to date, but if you notice something that is not up to date, let me know. And here are the severity levels. As I said in my last presentation, these severity levels are inspired in the syslog uh, severity levels. And as I was explaining, the level filtering goes from down to up of this list. So imagine you have a server that accepts uh, new customer orders for a website, And every request that is processed on the server requires an operative database connection in order to save the new order or make changes or delete an existing one. If the database connection doesn't work, the system usually writes a record with the critical severity to the log. This is the less severity that you can use for an event like that. You can you maybe want to call this an emergency, so you write an emergency record. And if you establish your log level to warning, you can be sure that everything up from warning up to emergency gets actually written to the log. But the other messages, I mean the bug informational and notice, that never gets to the final destination of the messages. So the intention of this is that taking this in account, uh, you maintain, I think, a cleaner and cleaner code. The code is plain because you are not evaluating conditions on your code to decide what gets to a log. You just call the logging methods, and this is the library, the one that actually do the apply the logic to decide what goes to the log and what not. And the library is performant enough to allow this to not disrupt the operation of your software. So to apply the filtering, you use the log level property and you apply the filter levels to the other dimensions, which is the other dimension is the topic. So you can have different log levels to different topics. This gives you nice flexibility. So you can, for example, decide to log everything for the database topic in a particular moment, but for other topics, you might want to log less information or even uh, switch off this complete topic, so nothing gets written to the destination of the log for this particular topic. So this is very useful on different environments, from development to testing to production, because you may allow your users to change the level of filtering of your application for the log, or you maybe read this from an ini file or the registry or a database, or you can even make some programming to, depending on the conditions of the runtime, you can decide to change the filtering level of the different topics that your application supports to fine tune the amount of log that your application produces, because the log tends to be tons and tons of log. If you write everything, that's the idea, that your application is capable of explaining everything that is going on the inside. But for production, for example, you usually want to keep only the things that means that there is something wrong going on with your application, which is usually from warnings up to emergency, for example. And you can apply these filters on the global level, uh, which is what I did in the code, but you can also have different filters on the different writers. So when a record is sent to the library first apply the global filter, and the records that pass this global filter goes to the different writers, and then each writer apply the filtering level that have the writer. So sometimes you might want to use this by writer configuration, and at the global filter you let pass everything, and on this allows you, for example, to write different level of logs to a different destinations. For example, you might write only errors or warnings or up to emergency to a database or to a syslog, while you maintain a more complete history on text files that usually have the most capacity to process the amount of log that your application might be producing at any any particular time. As I mentioned it earlier, the log tends to produce a lot of information. So uh, taking this uh, library, you can find very fine tune your application so that it allows you to do a complete tracking even in production of some problem that maybe is happening only on particular times, but on the rest of the time you only see the warnings and errors and emergencies and critical records uh, on the actual log files. Okay, finally, and the time is running up. I want to speak a little about performance. I want to start uh, saying that the library has been designed and tested for performance. But talking about this, uh, you have one decision to make, and the this is that if you want an ever up-to-date log, you don't have but to wait until the log gets processed on every call that you do to a log method. By processed, I mean until the record gets written to all the enabled destinations, the filters applied, and everything. So this creates contention on multi-threaded applications or even in single thread applications because the actual writing to the destination usually implies opening or closing a log channel. For example, to write to a disk, you have to open the file, append just one line or a bunch of lines that represent the record to the file and close the file. And you have to do this to make sure that the content is actually writing to the disk, and on one hand, and on the other hand, that you keep that file accessible to other applications that may be monitoring or processing the logs on a way, even for display on the screen. So if you want a performant application, of course you might don't want to do what I said. And with jachLog, you can do the logging method to return almost immediately the control to your program so you can continue processing your transactions or whatever you are doing on a performant way. And the library maintains a series of queues internally. So the engine takes the record that you want to produce uh, put it on a queue, returns the control to your applications, and on secondary threads, this record gets filtered and distributed to the different writers that are on runtime, and each of these writers on a different secondary thread processes the records, group the records that are available at a particular time, and for example, write maybe thousands of lines to a log file at once, which is also adds performance to the application. But of course, if your application, for example, have a crash, a critical crash, maybe the log will not show you the complete history. And okay, the time is up. I want to speak a lot more about this, but for now, I get back to Ian, and we will be answering your questions. Thank you for coming. Bye bye.
And Juan is joining us in the studio. His camera's turned off at the moment. I'm hoping he's going to turn it on, but we shall see. Are you there, Juan?
Hello.
Hi. Your camera's not showing at the moment, so that's fine. Maybe you don't want to be on
It
camera.
failed. Yeah. Hey, how are you?
Excellent. I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, fine. Thank you.
Yeah, we were both talking in the background about flying around on aircraft, because it's always horrific having to wait at airports.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think every time I talk to you, you're in a different country.
Yeah. I like to travel, but I don't like the airport time and
No,
these
me
things.
neither. It's all right once you get there, then it's cool, but then you've got to get the flight and security, and it's horrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's great stuff. So I've got a couple of questions then, sort of lined them up for you. First one will be, what made you decide to write jachLog? And is that, am I pronouncing it right? jachLog?
Yeah, it's what I think is the best pronunciation in English.
Right. Okay, good. Yeah. So what made you decide to write it in the first place?
Yeah, you know that I really started a lot of time ago, and at the time I didn't know any other library that does what I wanted to do in logging, and I really started this on one of my projects of the time. But from that moment, I keep maintaining it, and it got integrated in different software. So I started to rethink and made some change to the architecture, and the library I thought was mat, mature enough. So I decided to uh, extract it from I mean to make this a library, independent library, and to make it open source, so maybe others can um, just use it because it works. But it was a long time ago that I decided to write it, and it was because of I know no other library that can do what I wanted at the time.
Yeah, I mean that was the thing that we were talking about behind the scenes, is what makes it different. Well, I think the answer you would probably give is that try it out and see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure,
you
sure.
know,
I think it works for me, and I know other people that are using it, and it works for them too. So I think if you are not already doing or using another library, it you need to try it and make your own decision
yeah.
about it.
What? Just remind me, what sort of outputs can it write to? I know it can write to a file. Can it write to other things as well? What were the other devices?
Yeah, out of the box, you get the file writer. you get the UI writers, one for VCL that supports the making the output with different colors and everything because it uses rich edit to make the output. On FMX we use a memo, but we have both flavors, so you can put the output to the user. If your program is UI, you also get syslog. The syslog can be local or remote. This is based on INI.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
interesting. I didn't know you could do remote syslogging with that library. That's actually
Yeah,
something that other log libraries they can't always do that. The local one is not too bad, but a remote syslog is very interesting.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And that way you can consolidate the logs. For example, if you have uh, a server farm and you are running different instances of a software, you can consolidate the logs using syslog. So that's very very nice. And I have now base class for doing log to a database, but you have to write the specific writer. I mean inherit from that class to use a particular database vendor and your table design. I am planning maybe to add a standard uh, table design and support some databases through FireDuck in
mm.
the next version, but I am planning it now. But uh, in some months, I think maybe you can use that out of the box also to write to a database.
Yeah,
And
I mean that will be quite popular, I think. Excuse me,
yeah,
because I think for
oh,
some
go-
people, if they're writing Windows services that are communicating with databases, if they've got a connection to the database, then it makes sense to log to the database, and they've got everything in one area. You know.
yeah, sure, sure. I have a customer that logs everything to a database. I don't like that much the idea because the database is for other things. I know, but I think, but they are doing some monitoring based on the database, and the previous version of the software already was doing that. So they have this tooling also in place. So they didn't want to change the everything. So we are writing the log to the database in that case,
Yeah,
and I am evaluating another use case, and that is to use a queue to write the log so you don't lose the log if something bad happens to the server.
yeah. So it queues it up. That's a good idea as well. I mean, I agree with you. I think logging to databases is okay, but it's error prone because you're relying on the database. I mean, even a
Yeah,
local
and it is
database can go
slow.
wrong.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Whereas output to a file, because you showed in your demos that you can do multi-threading
yeah,
logging as
sure.
well, and not all databases handle that particularly well. Weirdly enough, you would think they would be the opposite. And also, it's you say it's open source. It's open source and free, right? That's correct,
Yeah,
isn't it?
sure. The license is the MIT license, if I remember correctly. But I put put some attentions to decide what license to use, so you can use it freely and in commercial projects with no problem.
That's excellent. Yeah, well, if people want it, there's the QR code. But as Patrick says down the bottom, because Patrick is our little man who does everything behind the scenes, us he's supposed to be working and doing something else. You
Yeah,
can also get it from GitHub there, and it's on Get It as well. So if people just go into the IDE and go to Get It, they can get your log from there. But it's great stuff. Thanks for the session. I really appreciate it. That's 2 sessions you did one after another, and they're both quite long as well. So I really appreciate the effort you put in. And you were worried about your accent. I know you said, "Oh, I hope people understand me." I always say this to you. You know, your accent is absolutely perfectly fine, and take it from someone
Okay,
who's
thank you. Yeah.
English. You know, it's great. But you said you need to speak more with people speaking English. I think to practice. I think that it's
Yeah,
the same.
my spoken English is rust because I never speak it. I very rarely speak English, but
Yeah, it's the
I have
same
to
with me in
practice.
French. I years ago I used to look after a French grandmother, and at the time, not my grandmother, someone else's grandmother, and at the time I could speak French quite well. But
Yeah,
now, many years later, I just don't get enough practice, and that's an invitation for Patrick there. But I don't get enough practice, and then I feel like a little child because I'm like, oh, what was the word for
yeah,
something?
yeah.
You just
It
completely
happens.
forget, but you can speak fluently in your own language, of course, and it's frustrating. But you know, anyway, great stuff. I appreciate you taking the time out to present to people, and I'm
Thank you
sure
for
we'll
having
bump
me.
into to each other
Yeah,
at
yeah.
another event around the world and online. But for now, thanks a lot, Juan, and take care.
Thanks to you, Ian. Thank you for
No,
having me, and goodbye to everyone.
yeah, thank you. Bye bye.